If I were to ask you, in your opinion, what is the greatest scripture ever recorded? What is the greatest prayer ever recorded in Scripture but never answered? If you were to start in Genesis and work your way through the Bible, some of us may have the same answer, some of us may have different answers. A couple years ago, I was driving down the highway in my truck, and a song came on the radio, and when I heard this song, I said, this has got to be these lyrics are awful. It went, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. Now, when I heard that song, I said, I do not pray to God so he does not hear my prayers. This song makes no sense. And I was sitting down one night, and I was preparing a sermon, and I titled it, The Greatest Prayer Ever Recorded in Scripture but Never Answered. In Matthew chapter 26, starting in verse number 39, the Scripture records that Jesus comes into the garden. And when he comes into the garden, the Scripture records that Jesus fell on his face and began praying, saying, Father, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. Not my will, but thine be done. Friends, you want to imagine what would happen if God answered that prayer? We wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be no hope. Jesus understood that it had to go through. God understood it had to go through. But 3 times in that garden, Jesus prayed, Father, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. Jesus knew that Judas was about to betray him. The Jewish mob were about to come and take him. He understood what was about to happen, and he prayed a prayer. As a father, watching, I have a son on the way, but even my daughters, if they were in a situation where I had the power to pull them up, that would have to be one of the hardest things, was to not do it. I heard people say one time, they said, oh, I should not tell this story. I heard people say one time, they said, listen, how can a loving God have the power to save his son, but choose not to? In 1938, there was a man who worked at a train car. Forgive me if I lose it in this story. What his job was he was in a tower, okay? And he was where they lift the gate for the bridges, for the trains to go across. Drawbridge conductor or operator. And he had a young boy that asked him every day, Dad, can I go to work with you? Can I please go to work with you? And every day his dad would say, no, son, no. Sorry, you can't go to work with me. Well, the little boy kept bothering his dad, kept bothering him. Can I please go to work with you? Finally, his dad said, you know what? Get in the truck in the morning and we'll go down to work. I'll let you come with me. I'm working half a day. Pack a lunch and we'll have a good time down there, okay? I'll show you what I do. So they get in the truck. They go down before sunrise. He gets him up in the tower. He says, see, son, here's these controls here. This lever opens the bridge so that the boats can go underneath. This lever, when I push it, it drops down so the train can go across. The son's all amazed. Finally, I get to see what my dad does. He says, son, why don't you go down? Sorry, I shouldn't even told this story. He said, son, why don't you go down to the river and bring your lunch? Take our lunch down there. I'll be down there in just a minute. I got to let this train pass by, and I'll be down there. Go down there and watch it. The bridge is up. So the son goes out the door, and he starts heading down the way. And the dad says, all right, here comes the train. I'm about to drop the lever. As soon as he about to drop that lever, he looks down to where his son's supposed to be, and he notices that his son has fallen into the gears of this bridge. Now, at this time, this is a true story, friends. At this time, this dad had to make a decision. Do I drop this bridge and sacrifice my son so this car full of people on this train can pass? Or do I leave the bridge up in the air and save my son, and these people have no hope? And the man had to push the lever. He goes down there to the river, and he's holding his son in his arms. He looks up, and the people are driving by, reading their paper, talking, laughing. And as he holds his son, he says, why don't you understand what I've just done for you? He did something so that people could have hope. He made a decision so that people at that time could have hope. He knew, if I leave this bridge open and make this happen and save my son, these people have no hope. They're leading towards a dead-end rail. When Jesus was in the garden, he prayed that prayer. God knew they will have no hope. It has to happen this way. A lot of people say, well, I knew what Jesus did for me. I hear a lot of people who, when the invitation is sung and their life's not right, they let that pass up. I'll do it next Sunday. I'll do it next Wednesday. Jesus said on the cross, when people were spitting upon him, when people were mocking him, when his hands were nailed to the cross and his feet were pierced to the cross and a crown of thorns were on his head, he looked down and he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Today, Jesus is saying, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. The difference is we understand what we're doing. We know what we need to do. We know when our lives are not right. And we have the hope, friends. We have the hope. Tonight, you may be in a situation where you've made your life right with Christ. You went into the waters of baptism, but looking at your life right now, if Jesus was to come back and stand before you, would he say, well done? Or would he say, depart from me, I don't know who you are? Maybe you never made that decision. Maybe you're sitting there saying, you know what, I've never been a Christian. I know what Jesus done. It's time for me tonight to quit living for the world and start living for Christ. Well, here's water. The way that you come in contact with that sacrifice that Jesus made for you is by getting into the water, coming in contact, being fully immersed in it. You know, the people on that train car, if they would have known what that man did, I'm sure they would have been thankful. And I'm sure that they would have done anything in their power to repay that man, knowing what he did. All Jesus says is, come unto me, and I'll give you rest. Friends, tonight, if you are in need of the gospel invitation, if we can help you in any way, pray for you, if we can encourage you, and if you want to put Christ on in baptism, don't hesitate tonight. As together we stand and as we sing.